Chapter 1. Stop reacting. Reactions are the chain. Imagine for a moment that you are walking through a crowded city street. Every person you pass has a string attached to your wrist. Every time someone bumps into you, they pull the string, and your arm jerks. Every time someone scowls at you, they pull a string, and your heart rate spikes. Every time a headline flashes on a digital billboard, another string pulls, and your mind begins to race with anger or fear. By the end of the block, you are exhausted. You aren't walking. You are being twitch-pulled in 1,000 different directions. This is the life of a person who has not mastered the art of detachment. This is the life of a reactor. The core premise of this book, and the foundation of your future mental freedom, is a single, uncompromising truth. What you react to controls you. If I can say something to you that makes you lose your temper, I own you in that moment. If a stranger on the internet can type 10 words that keep you awake until 2 a.m., that stranger has more power over your biology than you do. Your reactions are the chains that bind you to the external world. But here is the secret most people never realize. Those chains are not made of iron. They are made of habit. And habits can be dismantled. The illusion of personality. We often hear people say things like, "I just have a short fuse," or "I'm a sensitive person, I can't help but get upset." We treat our emotional reactions as if they are part of our DNA, like the color of our eyes or the shape of our hands. This is a profound misunderstanding of the human mind. Emotional reactions are not personality traits. They are conditioned responses. They are neural pathways that have been worn deep into your brain through years of repetition. You weren't born reacting to a read receipt on a text message. You weren't born feeling a surge of cortisol because someone cut you off in traffic. You learned to react. You watched others do it, you did it yourself, and every time you repeated the behavior, you told your brain, "This is the appropriate way to respond to this stimulus." When you say, "That's just who I am," you are giving yourself a life sentence in a prison of your own making. You are choosing to believe that you have no agency. But detachment begins the moment you realize that there is a self that exists behind the emotion. There is an observer who can see the anger rising, feel the heat in the chest, and decide, with cold, calculated precision, not to let it reach the surface. The biological hijack. To stop reacting, we have to look at what happens inside your body in the seconds after provocation. We call this the biological hijack. Deep within your brain lies the amygdala, a primitive structure responsible for your survival. Its job is to scan the environment for threats. Thousands of years ago, those threats were physical: a predator in the brush, a falling rock, a hostile tribe. Today, the amygdala is still scanning, but it cannot distinguish between a physical threat and a social one. When your boss criticizes your work in front of the team, your amygdala doesn't see constructive feedback. It sees social exclusion, which to our ancestors meant death. It triggers the fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your breath becomes shallow, and your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, long-term thinking, and strategy, goes offline. In that moment, you are no longer a modern human. You are a cornered animal. And animals don't have freedom, they only have instincts. They react. The goal of emotional detachment is to keep the prefrontal cortex online. It is to create a sacred pause between the event and your response. In that pause, you transition from a victim of your biology to a master of your psychology. Real-world chains, social media, and the outrage economy. Let's look at where we hand over our power most frequently in the modern day, the digital landscape. We live in an outrage economy. Platforms are designed specifically to trigger your reactions because your reactions generate data, and data generates profit. Every headline is crafted to make you feel a spike of indignation. Every comment section is a minefield of bait. When you scroll through your feed and see something that makes you angry, your first instinct is to strike back. You want to type a comment, you want to share your outrage, you want to correct the person who is wrong. But look at what is actually happening. You are sitting in a chair, staring at a piece of glass, and your internal chemistry is being manipulated by someone you have never met, who may not even exist. You have been hooked. You are now a participant in someone else's game. The detached mind sees the bait and recognizes it for what it is. It asks, Is this worth my peace? The answer is almost always no. Silence in the face of digital provocation isn't losing an argument. It is winning the battle for your own attention. If you do not react, the chain has nothing to latch onto. You remain free while everyone else is being led by the nose through the mud of pointless conflict. Workplace stress and the power of the observer. In the workplace, reactivity is the enemy of leadership and career longevity. We have all seen the reactive manager, the one who panics when a deadline is missed, who lashes out when a mistake is made, and who is constantly in a state of emergency. Compare that to the detached leader. This person doesn't lack emotion, they lack reactivity. When a crisis hits, they don't spiral. They observe. They treat the problem as a set of variables to be solved rather than a personal attack or a catastrophe. Think about the last time a colleague was rude to you. Your immediate reaction was likely a defensive one, perhaps a sharp retort or a day spent stewing in resentment. By reacting, you allowed that colleague to dictate your mood for the next 8 hours. You gave them a free rental in your head. Detachment is the realization that other people's behavior is a reflection of their internal state, not yours. If a colleague is rude, it is because they are stressed, insecure, or lacking in social skill. That is their problem to carry. Why would you reach out and take that heavy, dirty bag from them and carry it yourself? When you stop reacting to workplace politics, you become the most powerful person in the room. Why? Because you are the only one who can see clearly while everyone else is blinded by their own ego and fear. The sacred pause. How to break the chain. So, how do we practically stop the reaction? We use a technique called the sacred pause. Most reactions happen in less than a second. To break the habit, you must manually intervene in that timeline. Step 1. Identify the physical flash. Before a reaction reaches your mouth, it hits your body. You might feel a tightening in your stomach, a heat in your neck, or a clenching of your jaw. This is your early warning system. You must learn to recognize these physical sensations as they happen. Step 2. Label the emotion. Instead of saying I am angry, say I am experiencing the sensation of anger. This small shift in language creates a distance between your identity and the emotion. You are the sky. The anger is just a cloud passing through. The sky doesn't try to stop the cloud, but the sky also isn't become the cloud. Step 3. The 3-breath rule. In the moment of provocation, you do nothing. You say nothing. You simply breathe. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4. This physical act forces your nervous system out of fight or flight and back into rest and digest. It brings your logic center back online. Step 4. Choose the response. Now that you are no longer a cornered animal, you can ask, what is the most strategic thing to do right now? Sometimes the answer is to speak up firmly. Sometimes the answer is to walk away. Sometimes the answer is to do nothing at all. But whatever you do, it is now a choice, not a reflex. Strategic dominance. Detachment is often misunderstood as being a doormat. People think that if they don't react, they are letting people walk all over them. The opposite is true. A reaction is a sign of weakness. It shows that you can be easily manipulated. It shows that your buttons are exposed and easy to press. A person who does not react is terrifying to an aggressor. When someone tries to provoke you and you respond with a calm, steady gaze and a neutral tone, you have exerted absolute dominance over the situation. You have shown that your internal world is a fortress that they do not have the keys to enter. This is strategic dominance. It is the ability to stay calm when the world is screaming. It is the ability to see the long game while others are obsessed with the immediate sting of their own ego. Conclusion of Chapter 1. As you move through the rest of this day, I want you to look for your chains. Every time you feel that urge to snap back, to scroll more, to judge, or to worry, ask yourself, who is pulling my string right now? The goal is not to stop feeling. The goal is to stop being a puppet. You are training yourself to be the observer of the storm, rather than the storm itself. Remember, every time you choose not to react, your chains get a little bit thinner. Every time you choose the pause, your mental freedom grows. What you react to controls you. From this moment forward, choose to be uncontrolled. Choose to be free. Chapter 2. Emotional attachment is the root of suffering. There is an ancient story used to describe the way humans trap themselves in their own lives. It's the story of the monkey trap. To catch a monkey, hunters will take a heavy gourd or a crate with a small hole in it, just large enough for the monkey to slide its open hand inside. Inside the crate, they place something the monkey craves, a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts. The monkey smells the treat, reaches in, and grabs it. But once its hand is clenched into a fist, it is too large to be pulled back through the hole. The monkey is stuck. The hunters approach, and the monkey screams and fights, but it refuses to let go of the food. It is not the crate that has trapped the monkey. It is the monkey's own attachment to the prize that has sealed its fate. All the monkey has to do to be free is open its hand. But to the monkey, letting go feels like losing. In our lives, we are that monkey. We reach into the world and we grab onto people, onto titles, onto bank accounts, and onto the way we think things should be. We clench our fists tight, and when life moves on, as life always does, we feel ourselves being dragged. We feel the pain, the tension, and the suffering. And we cry out, "Why is life so hard?" Life isn't holding on to you. You are holding on to life. And the core truth of this chapter is this: the tighter you cling, the more you suffer. The anatomy of attachment. We must begin by defining what we mean by attachment. In the context of emotional freedom, attachment is not the same as love, and it is not the same as ambition. Attachment is emotional dependence. It is the belief that I cannot be okay unless X remains exactly as it is. Attachment is the invisible thread you tie from your heart to an external object, person, or outcome. You believe that these threads provide security, but in reality, they provide a conduit for pain. Because the nature of the universe is change, impermanence is the only law that is never broken. Anything you attach yourself to will eventually change, leave, or dissolve. When you attach your identity to a job, and that job ends, you don't just lose an income, you lose yourself. When you attach your happiness to a person, and that person fails you, you don't just feel disappointment, you feel a total internal collapse. This is why attachment is the root of suffering. It guarantees that your peace of mind is a hostage to fortune. Expectation, the architect of disappointment. If attachment is the hand holding the fruit, then expectation is the plan for how the fruit should taste. Most of our suffering does not come from reality itself. It comes from the gap between reality and our expectations. We have an internal script of how our lives, our partners, and our careers should play out. When the actors in our lives don't follow our script, we suffer. Think about a small example. You go to a restaurant expecting the best meal of your life because you saw a review online. The food arrives, and it's just okay. You feel frustrated, perhaps even cheated. Now, imagine you walked into that same restaurant with no expectations at all. That okay meal would have been perfectly fine. The food was the same in both scenarios. The only difference was the weight of your expectation. Now, apply this to the bigger things. We expect our partners to never change. We expect our hard work to always be rewarded immediately. We expect our health to be permanent. These expectations are actually premeditated resentments. By attaching yourself to a specific outcome, you are essentially telling the universe, "I refuse to be happy unless you obey my rules." And the universe does not obey your rules. Unstable anchors, where we cling the hardest. To achieve mental freedom, we must audit our unstable anchors. These are the things we cling to for stability that are, by their very nature, unstable. 1. Attachment to people and approval. This is perhaps the most painful attachment. We attach ourselves to the idea of someone, or more dangerously, to the way they perceive us. We become approval addicts. If they smile at us, we are high. If they criticize us, we crash. This is an unstable anchor because you cannot control the internal weather of another human being. To attach your peace to someone else's opinion is to build your house on shifting sand. 2. Attachment to money and status. We are told that money buys security. And while money buys comfort, it does not buy a safe mind. If your sense of worth is attached to your net worth, you will live in a constant state of low-level anxiety. Why? Because you know, deep down, that markets can crash, currencies can devalue, and titles can be taken away in a single HR meeting. 3. Attachment to the past, the how it used to be trap. Many of us are attached to a version of ourselves or our lives that no longer exists. We cling to our glory days or we cling to our past traumas. Both are attachments. When you cling to the past, you are emotionally unavailable for the present. You are trying to live in a house that has already burned down. Detachment is not abandonment. At this point, many people resist the idea of detachment. They say, if I don't attach myself to my goals, I won't be motivated. Or, if I detach from my partner, it means I don't love them. This is a misunderstanding. Detachment is not the absence of care. It is the absence of clinging. Imagine you are holding a beautiful, fragile bird in your hands. If you are attached to the bird, you will squeeze your hands tight to make sure it doesn't fly away. But what happens? You crush the bird. You kill the very thing you love because you are afraid of losing it. If you are detached, in the healthy, spiritual sense, you keep your hands wide open. The bird can sit there, it can sing, and it can stay. And if it chooses to fly away, it flies. You still appreciated the bird. You still felt the joy of its presence. But you didn't need to possess it to be whole. You can work 80 hours a week toward a goal while being detached from the outcome. You do the work with 100% intensity, but you don't let the result define your soul. You can love your partner with every fiber of your being while being detached, meaning you love them as a free individual, not as an extension of your own ego that must behave a certain way for you to be happy. The power of leaning out. How do we begin to loosen the grip? We practice the art of leaning out. Most of us lean into our suffering. When something goes wrong, we obsess over it. We replay it. We grip it tighter. Leaning out means observing your attachment from a distance. When you feel that pang of anxiety because someone hasn't texted you back, or because you didn't get the praise you expected, stop and look at the fist. Ask yourself, what am I clinging to right now? I am clinging to the need for validation. I am clinging to the idea that I must be liked by everyone. I am clinging to a result I cannot control. Simply naming the attachment begins to dissolve it. You realize that the fruit in the monkey trap isn't actually worth the cage you found yourself in. The freedom of non-possession. True mental freedom comes when you realize that you don't actually own anything in this life. Not your house, not your money, not your body, and certainly not the people around you. Everything is on loan. You are a guest in this life, and these things are passing through your experience. When you view life through the lens of non-possession, the fear of loss begins to vanish. You can't lose what you don't own. You can enjoy a luxurious car, but you aren't attached to it. If it gets scratched, your soul isn't scratched. You can enjoy a deep relationship, but you aren't attached to it. If the person leaves, you are still you. This is the state of the unshakable mind. You are no longer a victim of the unstable anchors. You have anchored yourself within your own center, a place that does not require external permission to be at peace. Practice the cloud meditation. To train your brain in the art of detachment, try this 15-minute mental exercise every day. Close your eyes and visualize your life as a vast, open sky. Now, take every one of your attachments, your bank account, your partner's opinion, your physical appearance, your biggest career goal, and turn them into clouds. See them floating in your sky. Notice that some clouds are dark and heavy, your worries, and some are white and fluffy, your desires. But notice the most important thing. You are the sky. The clouds are just passing through. They are not the sky. They don't hurt the sky. They don't change the sky's fundamental nature. If a cloud moves out of view, the sky is not diminished. If a new cloud enters, the sky is not overwhelmed. Practice being the sky. Let the attachments drift. Do not reach up and try to grab a cloud to keep it from moving. Do not try to push a dark cloud away. Just watch. Conclusion of Chapter 2. As you move into the world after this chapter, I want you to pay attention to your grip. Notice when you are clenching your teeth, your heart, or your mind around a specific outcome. When you feel that tension, remember the monkey. Remember that the only thing keeping you trapped is your refusal to open your hand. Say to yourself, I release my grip. I accept what is. I am the sky. Detachment is not losing everything. It is losing the fear of losing everything. And in that fearlessness, you will find a freedom that no person and no event can ever take away from you. The tighter you cling, the more you suffer. So, let go. And finally, breathe. Chapter 3. Detach from opinions or be owned by them. We live in a world of invisible juries. From the moment you wake up and check your phone to the moment you lay your head on the pillow, you are likely performing for an audience. Sometimes that audience is real, your boss, your spouse, your followers. Other times, the audience is a ghost, a parent who criticized you 20 years ago, or a standard of success created by people you don't even like. The truth is this: if you require the positive opinion of others to feel good, you have handed over the deed to your emotional house. You are no longer the landlord of your own soul. You are a tenant, paying rent in the form of people-pleasing, self-censorship, and constant anxiety. This chapter is about reclaiming your deed. It is about the realization that seeking approval makes your emotional state publicly owned. To be free, you must learn to let opinions exist in the air around you without ever letting them settle under your skin. The approval trap, a survival mechanism gone wrong. Why is it so hard to ignore what people think? Why does a single negative comment on a post of 100 likes sting so much? It goes back to the tribal brain. For our ancestors, being disliked by the tribe wasn't just an emotional hurt, it was a death sentence. If the tribe had a low opinion of you, they wouldn't share their food, they wouldn't protect you from predators, and they might eventually cast you out. We are the descendants of the people who were terrified of being disliked. But we no longer live in small tribes of 50 people. We live in a global village of 8 billion. Your brain is still acting as if every dislike or judgmental glance is a threat to your survival. It isn't. You can be the most hated person on a street corner and still go home to a warm meal and a safe bed. The threat of an opinion is an illusion, yet we treat it like a physical wound. Detachment begins when you recognize this biological glitch. You must consciously tell your brain, this person's opinion cannot stop my breath. It cannot take my food. It has no power unless I give it my attention. The cost of explanation. Why you must stop justifying. One of the greatest leaks of emotional energy is the urge to explain, defend, and justify yourself. Think about the last time someone misunderstood your intentions or criticized a choice you made. What did you do? You likely spent 30 minutes crafting a text or an email to set the record straight. You wanted them to see your side. You wanted them to say, "Oh, I see now, you're a good person." When you do this, you are begging. You are begging for permission to be yourself. Silence is self-respect. Every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't invested in your growth, you are telling them that their judgment is the court in which you are being tried. But you are the only judge in your life. When you refuse to explain, you reclaim your power. You are essentially saying, my reasons are mine. My life is mine. Your understanding of me is not a requirement for my existence. If someone thinks you are cold because you set a boundary, let them. If someone thinks you are lazy because you quit a high-stress job, let them. Their opinion is a reflection of their values, not your reality. The mirror effect. Criticism as autobiography. To detach from opinions, you must understand where they come from. An opinion is rarely a statement about the person being judged. It is almost always a statement about the person doing the judging. If someone calls you arrogant, they are often revealing their own insecurity. If someone calls you unrealistic, they are revealing their own fear of failure. People can only perceive in you what they recognize in themselves, or what they are afraid of in themselves. Think of opinions as a mirror. When someone speaks about you, they are looking in a mirror and describing what they see behind their own eyes. Why would you get upset about a description of someone else's internal world? When you receive criticism, ask yourself, is this data or is this noise? Data is constructive feedback from someone you respect, aimed at helping you improve. Noise is everything else. It is the gossip, the jealousy, the projection, and the expectations of people who don't have to live with the consequences of your choices. Most of what you hear is noise. Detachment is the volume knob. You can't always stop the noise, but you can turn it down until it's just a faint hum in the background. Handling the digital echo, online comments and social media. We must address the specific toxicity of the digital age. Social media has created a world where we are constantly subjected to the opinions of people who do not know us, do not care about us, and have no context for our lives. The comment section is the graveyard of peace. People use the internet to vent the frustrations of their own unlived lives. When you engage with an online critic, you are rolling in the mud with a stranger who has nothing to lose. The rule for digital detachment is simple. Do not look at the scoreboard. If you are creating, if you are sharing, if you are living, do it for the sake of the act itself, not for the digital validation that follows. If you find yourself checking for likes or approval, you are training your brain to be an addict. The most powerful thing you can do on the internet is to be misunderstood and be perfectly okay with it. Let the comments stand. Don't delete them, don't argue with them, and don't let them move the needle of your self-worth. Family and social expectations. The hardest detachment. It is easy to detach from a stranger. It is incredibly difficult to detach from a parent, a sibling, or a lifelong friend. These are the people whose opinions have weight. They are the ones who know us. But often, the people who know us the longest are the ones most committed to an old version of us. They have an image of who you should be, and when you step outside that image, they use guilt, shame, or concern to pull you back. Detaching from family expectations does not mean cutting them out of your life. It means drawing an emotional line in the sand. It means saying, I love you, and I value our relationship, but your vision for my life is not my burden to carry. You must accept that you might disappoint them. In fact, you must be willing to disappoint others to avoid disappointing yourself. Mental freedom is found in the wreckage of other people's expectations. Silence is self-respect. We return to our mantra. Silence is self-respect. Think of the most powerful person you can imagine. Are they rushing around trying to convince everyone that they are powerful? Are they arguing with every critic? No, they move in silence. Their results speak for them. When you are insulted and you respond with silence, you have won. Not because you beat the other person, but because you refused to let their vibration disrupt yours. You maintained your frequency. Silence says, your opinion is not heavy enough to move me. Silence says, I am not a participant in your drama. Silence says, I belong to myself. Practice the radio station visualization. To build this muscle, use this 15-minute visualization. Close your eyes. Imagine you are sitting in a comfortable chair in a quiet room. This room is your mind. Now, imagine that outside this room, there are dozens of radios playing at full volume. Each radio represents a different opinion. Your mother's voice, your boss's criticism, your ex's judgment, the internet's outrage. The noise is deafening. It's chaotic. Now, imagine yourself walking to the door of your room. You don't go outside to yell at the radios to stop. That would be reacting. Instead, you simply close the door. The door is thick and soundproof. Suddenly, the noise drops. You can still hear a faint vibration, but it no longer has words. It's just a dull hum. Now, walk to the center of your room and sit down. This is your self. This is your peace. Stay in that silence for 10 minutes. If a thought enters, but what did they mean by that comment? Recognize that you just opened the door. Close it again. Return to the center. Conclusion of Chapter 3. As you walk out into the world today, people are going to have opinions about you. They are going to judge your clothes, your career, your parenting, and your silence. Let them. Opinions are like the wind. They blow, they swirl, and then they disappear. They only have power if you try to catch them. Stop explaining. Stop defending. Stop asking for permission to exist. Your life is not a trial, and you are not a defendant. Silence is self-respect. Reclaim your peace. Chapter 4. Control the mind by controlling meaning. There is a fundamental law of human psychology that, once understood, changes everything. It is this: nothing in this world has any meaning until you assign it one. The universe is inherently neutral. A storm is not evil, It is simply an atmospheric pressure change. A lion killing a gazelle is not cruel, it is biology. A stock market crash is not a catastrophe, it is a redistribution of numbers. These are events. They are data points. They are objective occurrences. Suffering, however, is purely subjective. Suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the event. It is the layer of paint we slap onto a blank canvas and then cry because we don't like the color. Emotional detachment begins the moment you stop narrating your life like a victim and start observing it like a scientist. If you want to control your mind, you must first master the art of controlling meaning. Because if you do not define the meaning of your experiences, your ego, and the world around you will gladly do it for you. The storyteller in your head. From the moment you wake up, there is a narrator in your head. It is a tireless storyteller that is constantly interpreting every sensation, every look, and every word you encounter. Imagine you walk past a friend on the street, and they don't say hello. The event is, a person walked by without speaking. That is the neutral reality. But your narrator immediately goes to work. It says, they saw me and ignored me. They must be mad at me. Or maybe I'm just not important enough to notice. Everyone eventually leaves me. By the time you get to the end of the block, you are angry, sad, and insecure. But look at what caused the pain. It wasn't the friend. It was the meaning you assigned to their silence. For all you know, they were thinking about their own dying relative, or they had just lost their job, or they simply didn't have their contacts in. When you are emotionally attached to your ego, you make yourself the protagonist of every event. You think things happen to you. But in a detached state, you realize that things just happen. The secret to mental freedom is to shorten the gap between the event and the meaning. When you stop narrating, the suffering stops. Rejection is just information. Let's talk about one of the most painful meanings we assign: rejection. Whether it is a romantic rejection, a job denial, or a pitch that was ignored, we usually assign the meaning of worthlessness. We tell ourselves, I am not good enough. I am lacking. This rejection is a verdict on my soul. The detached mind sees rejection differently. It sees rejection as data. When a scientist runs an experiment and the chemicals don't react the way he expected, he doesn't go home and cry. He doesn't say, the chemicals don't love me. I'm a failure. He looks at the result and says, interesting. This combination doesn't work. I need to change my variables. That is how you must view your life. If someone doesn't want to be in a relationship with you, that is simply data telling you that your variables don't match their variables. It is a sign that you should move your energy elsewhere. It isn't an identity, it's a direction. When you strip the meaning of worthlessness away from rejection, it loses its sting. It becomes nothing more than a no on a map, pointing you toward a yes. Failure is a social construct. Similar to rejection, failure is a label we apply to a result we didn't want. In nature, there is no such thing as failure. There is only trial and error. An oak tree that doesn't grow in a certain soil hasn't failed, it has simply encountered conditions that don't support its growth. We, however, attach our pride to our outcomes. We decide that if we don't hit a certain milestone by age 30, we are a failure. We decide that if our business closes, we are failures. But failure is a heavy, toxic word. It suggests a finality, a stain that cannot be washed off. Emotional detachment allows you to reframe failure as instruction. Every time a plan doesn't work, you have successfully identified one way that doesn't work. You are now smarter than you were yesterday. If you refuse to assign the meaning of failure to your setbacks, you become impossible to defeat. You are simply a student who is constantly learning from the environment. Disrespect, the ego's greatest trigger. Nothing triggers a reaction faster than the feeling of being disrespected. When someone speaks to us in a condescending tone or cuts us off in a meeting, our ego screams, how dare they? They think they are better than me. I must defend my honor. Again, look at the meaning. You are assigning the meaning of attack to someone else's behavior. But consider this, a person who is truly at peace, who is confident in their own skin, cannot be disrespected. Why? Because they don't give the other person the power to define their value. If a toddler calls you stupid, You don't get angry. Why? Because you don't assign any value to the toddler's opinion. You know they don't understand what they are saying. The detached mind views the disrespectful adult in the same way. You realize that a person who is rude is likely in pain, poorly raised, or incredibly stressed. Their rudeness is a symptom of their sickness, not a reflection of your worth. When you stop assigning the meaning of attack to people's bad behavior, you realize that it's actually quite sad. You don't feel anger, you feel a detached kind of pity. You see them as they are, someone who hasn't mastered their own mind. Reframing, the tool of the free. If nothing has meaning until you assign it, then you have the power to assign meanings that serve your growth rather than your destruction. This is called reframing. Reframing is not positive thinking. Positive thinking is often delusional. It's trying to pretend a rainy day is sunny. Reframing is about looking at the rain and deciding it's the perfect time to stay inside and work on your book. It's about finding the utility in every situation. The reframe of loss, instead of I lost everything, try the clutter has been cleared so I can build something better. The reframe of criticism, instead of they hate me, try they are giving me a perspective I haven't considered, or they are revealing their own limitations. The reframe of uncertainty, instead of I am in danger, try I am in a space of infinite possibility. The event remains the same. The feeling changes because the meaning changed. You are the architect. You are the one who decides if a wall is a barrier or a support. The objective narrator exercise. To practice this, you must learn to speak to yourself in the language of a third-party observer. When something bad happens today, I want you to narrate it out loud as if you are a nature documentary filmmaker. Instead of, I can't believe I missed the bus. Now I'm going to be late for the meeting and my boss is going to kill me. Everything is going wrong. Try, the human missed the transport vehicle. The heart rate has increased slightly. The human is now contemplating the potential social consequences of arriving late. The sun is still shining. The air is still entering the lungs. It sounds ridiculous, but it works. By stripping away the emotional adjectives, catastrophic, unfair, horrible, embarrassing, you return to the neutral ground of reality. And on neutral ground, you can think clearly. You can decide your next move without the fog of panic. Nothing is personal. The ultimate realization of Chapter 4 is that nothing is personal. Even when someone looks you in the eye and insults you, it isn't personal. They are reacting to a version of you that exists in their head. They are reacting to their own past, their own triggers, and their own bad day. When you realize that the world is not a conspiracy against you, but a chaotic dance of billions of people who are mostly just trying to survive their own thoughts, you stop being a target. You become a ghost. The arrows of meaning simply pass through you because there is no ego there to catch them. Emotional detachment begins when you stop narrating everything personally. You stop being the star of the tragedy and start being the director of the film. Practice the meaning audit. For the next 15 minutes of your day, or as you sit in silence, I want you to perform a meaning audit. Pick one thing that is currently causing you stress. It could be a conflict, a financial worry, or a personal flaw you dislike. State the fact, e.g., I have $500 in my bank account. Identify the meaning you've been giving it, e.g., this means I am a failure and I will be homeless. Strip the meaning, e.g., the $500 is just a number. It is a measurement of current currency. It does not have a voice. It does not say anything about my future. Assign a new, functional meaning, e.g., this is a challenge that requires me to be more creative and disciplined this month. This is data that tells me I need to change my spending habits. Conclusion of Chapter 4. You are the master of the label maker. The world will hand you events, but you are the one who decides which labels to stick on them. If you label your life with pain, betrayal, and hardship, you will live a hard, painful life. If you choose to label your life with experience, data, instruction, and neutrality, you will walk through the world with a mind that cannot be shaken. Nothing means anything until you assign it meaning. Choose your meanings wisely. Or better yet, see if you can go a few hours without assigning any meaning at all. Just watch. Just listen. Just be. Chapter 5. Stop emotional negotiation with reality. Imagine you are standing on the shore of an ocean. The tide is coming in. You don't like the tide. You feel it shouldn't be coming in right now because you've built a sandcastle or because you wanted to go for a walk on the beach. So, you stand at the water's edge and you begin to argue with the waves. You scream at the tide. You explain to the ocean why it's unfair that your sandcastle is about to be washed away. You cry, you plead, and you demand that the moon change its gravitational pull just for you. How would we describe someone doing that? We would call them delusional. We would say they are wasting their breath. We would tell them that the ocean doesn't have ears, and even if it did, it wouldn't care about their plans. And yet, this is exactly how the average person lives their emotional life. We spend hours, days, and sometimes years in a state of emotional negotiation with reality. We argue with things that have already happened. We protest events that are currently unfolding. We use our emotions as if they were a currency that could somehow buy us a different version of the present moment. The hard truth you must accept to be free is this: reality does not need your approval. It is happening whether you agree with it or not. Emotional detachment is the process of ending the negotiation and beginning the cooperation. The myth of should. The most dangerous word in the human vocabulary is the word should. He should have been more honest. I should have gotten that promotion. It shouldn't be raining today. The world should be fairer. When you use the word should, you are attempting to move a mountain with a toothpick. You are pitting your tiny, individual ego against the collective force of everything that has led up to this moment. Listen closely. Everything that is happening right now is the result of a billion preceding causes. If someone was rude to you, that is the result of their upbringing, their mourning, their biology, and their choices. In that specific second, given all those factors, they could not have been anything other than rude. To say they should have been different is to argue with the laws of cause and effect. When you say it should be different, you are creating a mental friction. That friction is what we call suffering. Emotional detachment means dropping the should and replacing it with is. He was dishonest. I did not get the promotion. It is raining. When you move from should to is, the friction vanishes. You are no longer wasting energy arguing with the past. You are finally standing on the solid ground of the present. Acceptance is not weakness, it is efficiency. One of the biggest hurdles to emotional detachment is the fear that if we accept reality, we are being weak. We think that if we don't get angry about an injustice, we are condoning it. We think that if we don't grieve with a certain level of intensity, we didn't care. We confuse acceptance with resignation. Resignation is saying, the world is bad, nothing will ever change, and I give up. Resignation is heavy, passive, and hopeless. Acceptance is saying, this is what is happening right now. Okay, now, what is my move? Acceptance is the ultimate form of efficiency. Think of a professional athlete. If a basketball player misses a shot, they don't stand in the middle of the court crying about how the ball should have gone in. If they did that, they would lose the game. Instead, they accept the missed shot instantly and run back on defense. They don't negotiate with the past, they engage with the present. Detachment allows you to see reality clearly so that you can act effectively. If you are in a house that is on fire, you don't sit in the living room arguing about why the stove shouldn't have short-circuited. You accept that the house is on fire and you exit. The faster you accept reality, the faster you can change your future. The cost of emotional resistance. Every time you emotionally resist reality, you are leaking power. Think of your emotional energy as a battery. You have a finite amount of it every day. When you spend your morning stewing over a rude comment from a stranger, you are using your battery. When you spend your afternoon wondering why me? After a setback, you are using your battery. By the time you actually need to do something productive, like work on your goals or care for your family, your battery is dead. We fight reality because we want to feel right. Our ego would rather be miserable and right than happy and wrong. We want to prove that the world was unfair to us. We want a cosmic apology. But the cosmic apology is never coming. The person who hurt you might never say they're sorry. The job you lost might never realize their mistake. If you wait for reality to apologize to you before you move on, you have given reality the power to keep you in a cage forever. Detachment is the realization that you don't need reality to be right or fair for you to be at peace. You simply stop paying the resistance tax. You keep your energy for yourself. Example, the unfair treatment. Let's look at a real-world example, workplace unfairness. You've worked harder than anyone on your team, but the promotion goes to the person who knows how to play the politics. The attached mind goes into a spiral of negotiation. This isn't fair. They don't see my value. I've put in so much time. If I had just stayed later on Tuesday, maybe they would have noticed. This shouldn't be happening. This person goes home and complains to their spouse for 3 hours. They wake up the next day exhausted and bitter. They have negotiated with reality and they have lost. The detached mind looks at the situation and says, the promotion was given to someone else. That is the reality. The criteria for promotion in this company clearly include things other than pure hard work. Okay, now, what are my options? I can stay here and learn the politics, I can stay here and accept my current role, or I can find a new company that values my specific skill set. Notice the difference. The detached person isn't happy about the unfairness, but they aren't bleeding because of it. They have preserved their strategic clarity. Because they didn't waste energy on a should, they have the mental space to plan their exit. Example, the loss of a relationship. Loss is perhaps the hardest thing to stop negotiating with. When a relationship ends, we spend months in the if-only phase. If only I hadn't said that. If only we had gone to therapy. They shouldn't have given up on us. This is the monkey trap we discussed in Chapter 2, but on a much deeper level. We are trying to use our grief to rewrite history. We think that if we feel enough pain, we can somehow bargain with the universe to bring the person back. But the reality is, the relationship has ended. Detachment in the face of loss doesn't mean you don't feel the sting. It means you stop the negotiation. You allow the sadness to be there, but you remove the argument. You accept the void where that person used to be. By accepting the void, you eventually allow it to be filled with something else. By negotiating with the void, you ensure you stay trapped in it. Cooperation with reality. There is a concept in martial arts called yielding. When an opponent pushes you, you don't push back with equal force. That creates a stalemate or a collision. Instead, you pull. You go with their force and use it to throw them off balance. This is how the detached mind handles life. When life pushes you, you don't push back with "this shouldn't be happening." You yield. You say, "This is happening. I will move with it." If you get stuck in traffic, you don't fight the traffic. You cooperate with the reality that you will be late. You use the time to listen to a book, to breathe, or to think. You are no longer a victim of the traffic. You are a person who is currently in a car, moving slowly and staying at peace. When you cooperate with reality, you become unshakable. Because there is no event that can happen that you won't immediately accept and work with. You become like water. The water doesn't argue with the rocks in the stream, it simply flows around them. Practice the "is it true?" Audit. To break the habit of emotional negotiation, you must catch yourself in the act. Throughout your day, whenever you feel a surge of frustration, anger, or anxiety, perform this 15-minute mental audit. Step 1. State the protest. Write down or say out loud what you are complaining about. Example, "My partner is being cold to me and they shouldn't be." Step 2. Ask, "Is it true?" Can you absolutely know that it is true they shouldn't be cold? Look at the reality. They are being cold. Therefore, the reality is that they should be cold, because they are. Your should is a lie. Reality is the truth. Step 3. Ask, "How do I react when I believe this thought?" Notice the tension. Notice the urge to pick a fight, to withdraw, or to feel sorry for yourself. See how the thought "they shouldn't be this way" is actually what is causing the suffering, not the coldness itself. Step 4. Ask, "Who would I be without this thought?" Imagine the same situation. Your partner is cold, but you don't have the thought that they should be different. You just see them as a person who is currently experiencing a cold mood. You would be calm. You would be free. You might even be able to offer them a kind word because you aren't feeling attacked by their mood. The mantra, "It is what it is." Many people mock the phrase, "It is what it is," but it is actually one of the most powerful mantras for mental freedom. It is a verbal white flag. It is the end of the war. When you say, "It is what it is," you are not saying, "I like it." You are saying, "I recognize it." And in that recognition, the negotiation ends. The energy returns to your body. Your mind clears. Conclusion of Chapter 5. Reality is a relentless teacher. It will keep repeating the lesson until you learn it. And the lesson is always the same. You cannot win an argument with the present moment. Stop trying to bargain. Stop trying to protest. Stop waiting for reality to change so that you can finally feel okay. Emotional detachment is the bravery to look at reality, no matter how ugly, unfair, or painful it is, and say, "Yes, this is what is." From that yes, all power flows. From that yes, strategy is born. From that yes, you are finally free. Reality does not need your approval. Give up the fight, and you win the war for your mind. Chapter 6. Become comfortable with being misunderstood. There is a specific kind of social anxiety that haunts almost every human being. It isn't the fear of public speaking or the fear of being alone. It is the fear of being wrongly perceived. We have a deep, almost desperate urge for the people in our lives to see us as we see ourselves. We want them to know our hearts. We want them to understand our intentions. We want them to see the good in us, even when our actions are difficult or our boundaries are firm. We feel an almost physical itch to set the record straight when someone thinks we are being cold, selfish, or arrogant. But here is the hard truth of emotional detachment. The need to be understood is an emotional dependency. Every time you spend an hour explaining your why to someone who isn't really listening, you are handing them your power. You are saying, "I cannot be at peace until you validate my perspective." You are essentially asking for a permit to be yourself. Emotional freedom arrives the moment you realize that you don't need to be understood by others to be whole. In fact, your growth will almost require you to be misunderstood. The prison of explanation. Think about how much of your mental energy is wasted on mental rehearsals. You are in the shower, or you are driving to work, and you are having a conversation with someone who isn't there. You are defending your choices. You are explaining why you quit that job, or why you ended that relationship, or why you're starting that new business. Why do we do this? Because we are afraid of the labels people might put on us. We are afraid of being the villain in someone else's story. But here is the reality. You are already the villain in someone's story. Right now, as you listen to this, there is likely someone from your past, a former friend, an ex-partner, a disgruntled co-worker, who remembers you as the bad guy. They have a version of you in their head that is selfish, or mean, or incompetent. And here is the most important part. There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. No amount of explaining, no amount of setting the record straight, and no amount of pleading will change a mind that is committed to misunderstanding you. People don't see you as you are, they see you as they are. They view you through the lens of their own insecurities, their own traumas, and their own ego. When you detach from the need for their understanding, you stop being a prisoner of their perception. You realize that what they think of you is none of your business. You don't need permission to evolve. There is a recurring phrase you will encounter on the path to mental freedom: you don't need permission to evolve. Growth is inherently disruptive. When you begin to change your life, when you start setting boundaries, when you stop people-pleasing, when you prioritize your mental health, the people around you will get uncomfortable. They were used to the old you. The old you was predictable. The old you was easy to manage. When the new you shows up, they will often use misunderstanding as a weapon. They will say things like, "You've changed. You're being so cold lately. I don't even know who you are anymore. You're becoming so selfish." These aren't observations, they are anchors. They are attempts to pull you back into the version of you that served their needs. If you are attached to their understanding, you will falter. You will feel guilty. You will start to shrink back down to fit into the box they have built for you. Detachment means recognizing that their confusion is not your problem to solve. You are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to become a version of yourself that they don't recognize. Your evolution does not require a signature of approval from your social circle. The silent evolution. One of the hallmarks of a truly detached and powerful mind is the silent evolution. Most people feel the need to broadcast their growth. They want everyone to know they are doing the work. They want to explain their new boundaries to everyone they meet. This is actually a subtle form of seeking validation. You are saying, "Look at how much I've grown. Please tell me you see it." The detached mind moves in silence. You don't need to announce your boundaries. You simply hold them. You don't need to explain your new habits. You simply live them. If someone asks why you are different, you can give a simple, neutral answer. You don't need to provide a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation on your psychological journey. If they don't get it, that's fine. Your results are your only explanation. There is a massive amount of power in being the mystery. When you stop trying to be understood, you stop being predictable. You stop being someone who can be manipulated by guilt. You become a self that is defined from the inside out, rather than the outside in. Leadership and the price of clarity. In the world of leadership, whether you are leading a company, a family, or just your own life, misunderstanding is the price of entry. A leader has to see further than the people around them. They have to make decisions based on the long-term vision, while others are often focused on short-term comfort. If you are a leader, you will be called heartless when you make a tough financial decision. You will be called unstable when you pivot the direction of a project. You will be called arrogant when you trust your intuition over the consensus. If you are emotionally dependent on being liked and understood by your team or your peers, you will never be able to lead them. You will make consensus-based decisions that are safe but ultimately mediocre. Emotional detachment allows a leader to say, "I know you don't understand this decision right now. I know you might even hate me for it. That is okay. My job is not to be understood. My job is to be effective. My job is to protect the mission." When you become comfortable with being the villain for the sake of the vision, you have achieved strategic detachment. The mirror of projection. To truly let go of the urge to be understood, you must realize that most misunderstandings are actually projections. When someone says you are selfish for choosing to spend your Saturday alone instead of going to their party, they aren't actually describing your character. They are describing their own feeling of abandonment. They are describing their own inability to be alone. When you explain yourself to them, you are actually engaging with their trauma, not your reality. You are trying to fix a feeling in them that only they can fix. Detachment is the ability to look at someone's judgment and see it as a weather report of their internal state. If they are judgmental, it is raining inside them. You don't need to get a towel and try to dry them off. You just stay in your own house, where it is sunny and calm. You must reach a point where you can hear someone tell a lie about you, or misinterpret your heart, and feel absolutely no urge to correct them. You simply think, "That is an interesting story you've told yourself about me," and you move on with your day. Practice the villain meditation. This is a challenging but transformative 15-minute practice. Close your eyes. Visualize someone in your life whose opinion you still value too much, someone you are constantly trying to explain yourself to. Now, imagine that person is talking to someone else about you. Imagine them saying the worst, most unfair things possible. Imagine them calling you cold, or a failure, or a bad person. As you watch this scene, notice the flare-up in your body. Notice the urge to jump into the scene and say, "That's not true. Let me tell you what really happened." Now, take a deep breath and do nothing. Watch the scene as if it's a movie in a language you don't speak. See their mouths moving. See their angry faces. But don't let the words enter your heart. Say to yourself, "They are allowed to be wrong about me. I do not need their accuracy to exist. I am not my reputation. I am my reality." Repeat this until the flare-up in your body dies down. You are training your nervous system to stay calm in the face of a distorted mirror. The ultimate freedom. I don't care if you get it. The final stage of this chapter is reaching the point where your internal mantra becomes, "I don't care if you get it." This isn't said with anger or malice. It's said with the peace of a person who has finally come home to themselves. I'm setting this boundary. I don't care if you think it's unfair. I'm pursuing this dream. I don't care if you think it's crazy. I'm staying silent. I don't care if you think I'm being rude. When you truly don't care if people get you, you are finally free to be you. You stop editing your life to make it readable for others. You stop living a translated version of your existence. You become a primary source. Conclusion of Chapter 6. As you move through the world today, you will be misunderstood. Someone will misread your tone. Someone will judge your choices. Someone will think they know your real motives. Let them. Wear their misunderstanding like a loose garment. It doesn't have to fit you. You don't have to tailor it. You just let it hang there until it falls off. Remember, you are the only person who has to live in your head 24 hours a day. You are the only person who knows the full story of your struggles and your growth. If you are at peace with the person in the mirror, it doesn't matter if the rest of the world is confused. You don't need permission to evolve. And you certainly don't need to be understood to be free. Chapter 7. Emotional discipline is a daily practice. There is a common myth about personal growth that keeps people stuck in a cycle of frustration. We like to believe in the epiphany, the single moment of realization where everything changes, the clouds part, and we suddenly become enlightened, detached, and unshakable. We wait for a switch to flip in our brains that will permanently turn off our anxiety and turn on our inner peace. But mental freedom does not work that way. Emotional detachment is not a destination you arrive at. It is a physical and psychological state you maintain. It is not a switch, it is a muscle. And like any muscle, if you do not exercise it daily, it will atrophy. The core truth of this chapter is this: calm is trained, not hoped for. You do not get lucky with a peaceful mind. You do not wake up one day and find that the world no longer bothers you. You train your nervous system to handle chaos. You train your brain to filter out the noise. You build a fortress, brick by brick, through small, seemingly insignificant daily behaviors. Consistency is the only path to control. The fallacy of intensity. Most people try to fix their lives with intensity. They wait until they are in the middle of a massive crisis, a breakup, a job loss, a heated argument, and then they try to be detached. They try to use their willpower to stay calm when the house is already on fire. Of course, they fail. You cannot learn to swim while you are drowning in a shipwreck. You learn to swim in a calm pool so that when the shipwreck happens, your body already knows what to do. Emotional discipline is the calm pool. It is what you do on a Tuesday morning when nothing is wrong. It is how you carry yourself when no one is watching. If you are emotionally volatile in the small things, you will be a disaster in the big things. If you lose your temper because you dropped a glass of water, you have no hope of staying calm when your business fails. We shift our focus from intensity to process. We stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be disciplined. The morning buffer, winning the first hour. The most critical window for emotional discipline is the first 60 minutes of your day. This is when your brain is transitioning from alpha waves to theta waves. It is highly suggestible and incredibly vulnerable. How do most people start their day? They reach for their phone. The moment you check your notifications, you have ended your mental freedom for the day. You have invited 1,000 strangers into your bedroom. You are reacting to emails, reacting to news, reacting to social media. You are training your brain to be in a reactive state before you've even brushed your teeth. The practice of morning silence is the foundation of the detached mind. For the first hour of the day, the world does not exist. No phone, no news, no external input. This is your time to set your internal baseline. Spend this time in silence, in meditation, or in focused movement. You are telling your nervous system, I am the one who sets the tone for this day. The world must wait for me. I do not wait for the world. By the time you finally check your phone, you are doing so from a position of strength, not a position of craving. Controlled speech, the gatekeeper of the soul. If you want to know how much control a person has over their mind, look at how much control they have over their tongue. Emotional people talk too much. They over-explain. They gossip. They vent. They react to every prompt with a flood of words. Every time you speak without intention, you are leaking emotional energy. You are investing yourself in situations that don't require your presence. The practice of controlled speech is the discipline of saying less than necessary. In every interaction, practice the 2-second rule. Before you respond to anyone, even in a casual conversation, pause for 2 seconds. This pause is the physical manifestation of detachment. It proves that you are not being pulled into a reaction. It shows that your words are a choice, not a reflex. Furthermore, stop venting. We have been told that venting is healthy, that we need to get it out. But modern psychology shows that venting often just rehearses the anger. It wears the neural pathway of the grievance deeper into your brain. The detached mind processes emotion internally. You observe the heat, you feel the tension, and you let it dissolve. You don't need to vomit your emotions onto everyone around you to be free of them. Emotional tracking, the scientist of the self. You cannot change what you do not measure. Most people move through their day in a fog of moods. They feel off or annoyed or stressed, but they don't know why. The practice of emotional tracking is the act of becoming a scientist of your own triggers. Carry a small notebook or use a simple app to track your flare-ups. Every time you lose your peace, every time you feel that spike of irritation, that urge to check your phone, or that pang of anxiety, write it down. Trigger: boss asked for a status update. Reaction: felt insulted, heart rate spiked, felt the need to defend my productivity. Underlying attachment: attached to the idea of being seen as the perfect employee. When you do this, you move the emotion from the feeling part of your brain to the analytical part. You stop being the anger and start observing the anger. Over a week, you will see patterns. You will realize that you aren't actually stressed by everything. You are usually triggered by the same 3 or 4 recurring themes. Once you identify the themes, you can prepare for them. The pre-mortem for the day. Every morning, after your hour of silence, perform a mental pre-mortem. Look at your schedule for the day. Identify the moments where you are likely to lose your detachment. I have a meeting with that difficult client at 2 p.m. I have to see my mother-in-law at 6 p.m. I'll be in rush hour traffic at 5 p.m. Visualize these events going wrong. Imagine the client being rude. Imagine the traffic being at a standstill. And then, visualize yourself remaining detached. See yourself breathing through the tension. See yourself using the 2-second rule. By doing this, you are preloading your discipline. When the event actually happens, your brain doesn't see it as a shock. It sees it as a script you've already rehearsed. You are no longer reacting. You are executing a plan. Consistency over intensity. The 1% rule. You don't need to be a monk to have a detached mind. You just need to be 1% more disciplined today than you were yesterday. If you usually check your phone the second you wake up, try waiting 5 minutes today. That's a win. If you usually snap back at your partner when they criticize you, try taking 1 breath before you speak. That's a win. If you usually spend 3 hours a day on social media, try spending 2 hours and 50 minutes. These small wins compound. Emotional discipline is like a bank account. Every time you choose the pause over the reaction, you are making a deposit. Eventually, the interest on those deposits becomes so great that calm becomes your default state. You don't even have to try anymore. It is simply who you are. The physicality of detachment. We often treat detachment as a purely mental exercise, but the mind follows the body. You cannot have a calm mind if your body is in a state of chronic fight or flight. Emotional discipline includes regulated breathing. If your breath is shallow and fast, your brain will find something to be anxious about. Practice box breathing throughout the day to keep your nervous system in a safe state. Deliberate movement. Practice moving slower. When you are stressed, you tend to rush. You walk faster, you type faster, you eat faster. This rushing tells your brain you are in danger. By manually slowing down your movements, you force your brain to remain detached. Digital fasting. Set no-go zones for your phone. No phones at the dinner table. No phones in the bedroom. These physical boundaries create mental boundaries. Practice the 15-minute daily review. At the end of every day, take 15 minutes for a discipline audit. Do not skip this. This is where the real growth happens. Sit in a quiet space and ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I lose my detachment today? Identify the moment you reacted, clinged, or explained yourself unnecessarily. What was the hook? What specific ego need was being threatened? Was it the need to be right? The need to be liked? The fear of being incompetent? How will I handle that specific hook tomorrow? Visualize a better response. Do not judge yourself. Do not feel guilty. A scientist doesn't feel guilty when an experiment fails. They just collect the data and try again. You are simply collecting data on the machine that is your mind. Conclusion of Chapter 7. Emotional detachment is not a gift from the gods. It is a result of the mundane, repetitive work you do when no one is watching. It is the choice to keep the phone off. It is the choice to stay silent. It is the choice to breathe when you want to scream. Stop hoping for a peaceful life. Start training for a chaotic one. When you build the daily routine of discipline, you create a mental freedom that is independent of your circumstances. You become the master of the storm, not because the storm stopped, but because you learned how to stand still in the wind. Calm is trained, not hoped for. Go do the work. Chapter 8. Detach from outcomes, commit to actions. Imagine an archer standing in a field. He has practiced for years. His muscles are tuned, his vision is sharp, and his bow is of the highest quality. He notches an arrow, draws back the string, and feels the tension vibrating in his shoulders. He aims at the target, a small red circle in the distance. At this moment, the archer has absolute control over several things: the angle of his feet, the depth of his breath, the stillness of his eye, and the strength of his pull. He can control the process with 100% certainty. But the moment he releases the string, his control vanishes. A sudden gust of wind can blow the arrow off course. A bird can fly in its path. The target itself could be moved by someone else. If the archer's happiness, self-worth, and peace of mind are attached to whether or not the arrow hits the bullseye, he is a victim of the wind. He is a slave to the environment. This is the central paradox of a high-performance life. To achieve the best results, you must become indifferent to them. This chapter is about breaking your outcome addiction. It is about shifting your loyalty from the trophy to the training, from the destination to the step, and from the result to the action. Because obsession with results creates anxiety, but loyalty to the process creates mastery. The disease of outcome addiction. We live in a result-oriented society. We are measured by our GPA, our bank balance, our follower count, and our job titles. From a young age, we are taught that the action is merely a means to an end. You don't study to learn, you study to get the A. You don't work to create, you work to get the paycheck. This creates a psychological condition I call outcome addiction. When you are addicted to the outcome, you are constantly living in a state of not yet. I will be happy when I get the promotion. I will be at peace when I lose 10 pounds. I will be successful when I hit this revenue goal. Because the outcome is always in the future, you are never in the present. And because the future is inherently uncertain, you are always in a state of low-level anxiety. You are essentially gambling with your happiness. You are betting that the world will behave exactly as you want it to, just so you can feel okay for a few minutes before you set the next goal. The detached mind realizes that the outcome is a ghost. It is a flickering image that may or may not materialize. The only thing that is real, solid, and yours to keep is the action you are taking right now. The Stoic archer, control versus influence. To master the art of detachment from outcomes, we must revisit a core Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control. In every endeavor, there are 3 layers of reality. Things you control, your effort, your preparation, your attitude, your integrity, and your persistence. Things you influence, the quality of a project, the opinion of a client, or the health of a relationship. Things you have zero control over, the weather, the economy, the passage of time, and the free will of other people. Outcome addiction happens when we treat layer 2 and layer 3 as if they were layer 1. We act as if we can will a result into existence. When the result doesn't happen, we feel a sense of personal failure. Detachment is the process of pulling your energy back into layer 1. If you are a salesperson, You cannot control if a client signs the contract. You can only control how many calls you make and how well you prepare for the pitch. If you make 20 calls and 0 people sign, the outcome addict feels like a failure. But the process-loyal person feels like a success because they did the work they set out to do. They hit their input goal. When you detach from the result, you can no longer be defeated. If the arrow hits the target, you learn. If it misses, you learn. But the work continues regardless of the wind. The cure for burnout. We are told that burnout comes from working too hard. This is a lie. Humans are capable of incredible feats of endurance when they are motivated. Burnout doesn't come from the quantity of work. It comes from the weight of the expectation. Burnout happens when you work 80 hours a week with the absolute expectation that it must lead to a specific reward, and that reward is delayed or denied. It is the friction between your effort and your outcome addiction that grinds you down. It is the feeling of, I've done all this, and I still don't have what I wanted. When you are detached from outcomes, you work for the sake of the work. You find joy in the craftsmanship. You find pride in your own discipline. Because you aren't spending your energy to buy a result, you aren't bankrupt when the result doesn't show up. You are fueled by the process itself. A writer who loves the act of putting words on a page can write for 50 years without a bestseller. A writer who only wants the fame will quit after the first rejection letter. Process loyalty is the only sustainable fuel for long-term greatness. Relationship detachment. Loving without demanding. This concept is most difficult and most transformative in our personal lives. Most people love as a transaction. They are attached to the outcome of being loved back. They think, I am being kind to you, so you should be kind to me. I am being loyal, so you should be loyal. This isn't love, it's a contract. And like all contracts, it leads to litigation, resentment, and pain when the terms aren't met. Emotional detachment in a relationship means committing to the action of loving while releasing the outcome of being loved. It means your kindness is a reflection of your character, not a bait to get a reaction. You are kind because you are a kind person. You are honest because you value integrity. Whether the other person appreciates it, notices it, or reciprocates it is an outcome you cannot control. When you detach from the outcome of a relationship, the neediness vanishes. You stop being a beggar for affection and start being a provider of it. Paradoxically, this detachment usually makes you much more attractive and easier to be around, often leading to the very outcome you stopped obsessing over. The 100-0 rule. To practice this, I want you to adopt the 100-0 rule. Give 100% of your intensity, focus, and heart to the action. Give 0% of your concern, anxiety, or attachment to the result. When you are at the gym, don't look in the mirror every 5 minutes to see if you have abs yet. That is outcome addiction. Instead, focus 100% on the form of the lift, the contraction of the muscle, and the completion of the set. When the workout is over, walk away. You've done the work. The abs are a byproduct that will take care of themselves in the dark. When you are starting a business, don't obsess over the revenue of the first month. Focus 100% on the quality of the product and the service to the customer. The results are none of your business. The results belong to the universe, to the market, and to time. Your business is the input. Input goals versus output goals. If you want to live a detached life, you must stop setting output goals and start setting input goals. Output goal, unstable, I will lose 20 pounds. Input goal, stable, I will move my body for 30 minutes every day and eat whole foods. You can control the movement and the food. You cannot control how your metabolism responds today. Output goal, unstable, I will get 1,000 new subscribers. Input goal, stable, I will publish 2 high-quality pieces of content every week. You can control the publishing. You cannot control the algorithm or the audience's whim. When you hit an input goal, celebrate. You have won. You have exercised your agency. If you hit the input goal and the output doesn't follow immediately, it doesn't matter. You stay the course. You trust the law of large numbers. If the inputs are consistently high quality, the outputs eventually have no choice but to follow. The freedom of the third option. When you are attached to an outcome, you only have two options: win or lose. This makes life a high-stress gamble. When you are detached from outcomes, a third option emerges: data. If you pitch a client and they say no, the attached mind loses. The detached mind looks at the no and asks, what does this data tell me about my pitch? What does it tell me about this market? How can I refine my process for the next one? You never lose. You only gather information. This makes you incredibly dangerous to your competition because you don't have a breaking point. You can't be discouraged because discouragement requires an attachment to a result that didn't happen. Practice the release the arrow visualization. To train your brain to release outcomes, use this 15-minute visualization practice. Close your eyes. Think of a major goal or project you are currently working on. Visualize the work. See yourself doing the daily, mundane tasks required for that goal. See yourself typing, or exercising, or having difficult conversations. Feel the effort in your body. This is your 100%. Visualize the release. Imagine yourself taking all the results, the money, the praise, the trophy, the success, and putting them into a box. Give the box away. Visualize yourself handing that box to the wind. Watch it float away until it's a tiny speck on the horizon. Return to the work. Now, look back at the work in front of you. Notice how much lighter it feels now that you don't have to carry the weight of the result. You are just you and the task. There is a deep, quiet joy in that simplicity. Conclusion of Chapter 8. You have spent your whole life being told that the ends justify the means. I am telling you that the means are the ends. The quality of your life is not measured by the pile of trophies you collect at the end of the road. It is measured by the quality of your presence during the walk. Detach from the outcome. Release the results to the wind. They were never yours to begin with. The only thing you truly own is the effort you give in this moment. Do the work. Release the result. When you finally stop looking at the scoreboard, you will realize that you have already won the most important game, the game of your own mental freedom. Chapter 9. Emotional distance creates strategic clarity. Imagine you are a surgeon. You are standing over an operating table. The patient in front of you is a person with a life, a family, and a future. But at this moment, if you allow yourself to feel the full weight of that person's humanity, if you think about their children crying or their fear of death, your hand will shake. Your vision will blur with empathy. You will become a human, but you will cease to be a surgeon. To save the life, you must create emotional distance. You must see the patient not as a tragedy, but as a biological system with a specific mechanical problem to be solved. You must detach from the emotion to gain the clarity required for the incision. This is the hidden power of the detached mind. Emotion clouds judgment, distance sharpens it. In the world of strategy, business, and even personal conflict, the person who feels the most usually loses. Not because feelings are bad, but because intense emotion acts like a thick, blinding fog. It narrows your field of vision. It makes you move too fast when you should wait, and it makes you freeze when you should act. Detachment is the process of stepping out of the fog and onto the mountaintop. From the mountaintop, you can see the whole landscape. You can see the traps, the shortcuts, and the long-term consequences. Detachment turns chaos into information. The fog of war. In military history, they speak of the fog of war, the confusion caused by the chaos of the battlefield. When the bullets are flying and the smoke is thick, a soldier's world shrinks to the 6 inches in front of his face. He is in survival mode. He is reactive. Most people live their entire lives in the fog of war. When a crisis hits, a financial setback, a legal issue, a public scandal, they stay in the trenches. They feel the panic. They feel the anger. They feel the unfairness of it all. And because they are in it, they make desperate, short-term decisions that create long-term disasters. Emotional distance is the strategic withdrawal. It is the ability to mentally step back 30,000 feet while the war is still happening. When you create distance, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What is the structure of this problem?" You stop seeing an enemy and you start seeing an obstacle. You stop seeing a disaster and you start seeing variables. Distance doesn't mean you don't care about the outcome. It means you care enough about the outcome to remain calm enough to achieve it. The biology of the narrowed field. Why does emotion cloud judgment? It is a biological certainty. When you are emotionally triggered, specifically by fear or anger, your brain enters a state of cognitive tunneling. Your peripheral vision literally narrows. Your brain shuts down its creative centers and focuses all its energy on the immediate threat. In this state, you lose the ability to see nuances. You see the world in black and white. You see all or nothing solutions. This is why you say things during an argument that you regret 5 minutes later. In the moment of the argument, your brain was in a tunnel. It couldn't see the 5-year history of the relationship or the future consequences of the insult. It only saw the target. Strategic clarity requires wide-angle vision. It requires the ability to see multiple truths at once. You can only achieve this when your nervous system is at baseline. Emotional detachment is the manual override that keeps the tunnel from closing. By refusing to get hooked by the emotion, you keep your entire brain online. You remain the smartest person in the room simply because you are the only one with access to your full cognitive toolkit. Conflict resolution, the third-party perspective. Most interpersonal conflicts are like two people standing chest to chest, screaming at each other. They are so close they can't see anything but the other person's angry face. The detached person handles conflict like a mediator, even when they are a participant. Imagine you are having an argument with your spouse about money. The attached mind is in the fight. It is defending its ego, bringing up past hurts, and trying to win. The detached mind steps back. It looks at the situation as if it were a consultant hired to fix a business. It observes, person A is feeling insecure about the future. Person B is feeling restricted in their freedom. The objective problem is a 20% deficit in the monthly budget. The yelling is a biological discharge of stress. When you see it that way, you stop fighting. You start solving. You might even say, I can see we are both triggered right now. Let's step back and look at the numbers in an hour. This distance allows you to bypass the drama and go straight to the root of the issue. You aren't being cold, you are being effective. You are saving the relationship from the damage that emotional reactivity would cause. Leadership and the cold eye. The greatest leaders in history, from Marcus Aurelius to modern CEOs, possessed what is known as the cold eye. The cold eye is the ability to look at a situation without sentimentality. It is the ability to fire a friend because they are destroying the company. It is the ability to shut down a project you've spent millions on because the data says it will never work. If you are emotionally attached to your sunk costs, your time, your effort, your friendships, you will make sentimental decisions. Sentimental decisions are almost always bad decisions. They are based on the past, not the future. Emotional distance allows you to perform organizational surgery. You can look at the bleeding parts of your life and cut them off without flinching. This isn't because you are a sociopath. It's because you realize that if you don't cut off the gangrenous limb, the whole body will die. The most compassionate thing a leader can do is be clear and decisive. And you cannot be clear and decisive if you are drowning in the emotions of the people around you. Turning chaos into information. When a crisis hits, the reactive mind screams, "Why?" The detached mind asks, "What?" A disaster is just a set of facts that you weren't expecting. Reactive mind, "The server crashed. We're going to lose the client. This is a nightmare." Detached mind, "The server is offline. Current data loss is estimated at 4%. The client will need an update in 20 minutes. The immediate priority is the backup restoration." Notice that the detached mind has turned the nightmare into a checklist. By stripping away the dramatic language, you strip away the panic. When you treat chaos as information, you become unshakable. You become the person everyone looks to when the lights go out. People don't follow the person who feels the most. They follow the person who sees the furthest. Distance sharpens your pattern recognition. You start to see that crises are usually repetitive. You've seen this before. You know the moves. Because you aren't shaking, you can execute the play. The 10th of October, 10 rule, time distance. One of the most effective ways to create strategic distance is to use the 10th of October, 10 rule. When you are faced with a high-stakes decision or an emotional trigger, ask yourself, how will I feel about this in 10 minutes? How will I feel about this in 10 months? How will I feel about this in 10 years? Most of what we stress about feels like a 10 in the 10-minute window. But when you look at it through the 10-year window, it disappears. It becomes a footnote. By manually projecting your mind into the future, you create temporal distance. You are looking back at your current problem from the mountaintop of your future self. From that distance, the problem looks small. The path becomes clear. You realize that the emergency isn't actually an emergency. It's just a Tuesday. The drone perspective. To practice this daily, use the drone visualization. When you find yourself in a stressful situation, a crowded mall, a tense meeting, a family dinner, imagine a camera-equipped drone taking off from your shoulder. See the drone fly 10 feet up. Now you can see the top of your own head and the person you are talking to. See it fly 50 feet up. Now you can see the whole building and the streets around it. See it fly 500 feet up. Now you are just a tiny speck in a massive city. Look at that tiny speck, you, and the other tiny speck, your problem. From 500 feet up, the argument looks ridiculous. The stress looks unnecessary. The drone doesn't feel the heat of the room, it only sees the geometry of the situation. When you return to your body, bring that drone perspective with you. Stay high. Stay distant. Practice the information extraction exercise. For the next 15 minutes, or during your next crisis, perform this mental exercise. Isolate the emotion. Identify what you are feeling. E.g., I feel betrayed. Acknowledge and park. Say, I acknowledge the feeling of betrayal. I will deal with the feeling later. Right now, I need the facts. Extract the data. List only the objective facts of the situation. Fact, the contract was signed. Fact, the payment was not sent. Fact, the person is not answering their phone. Formulate the move. Based only on the facts, what is the most logical next step? Move. Contact the legal department and send a formal notice. Notice how much easier it is to act when you aren't trying to carry the weight of betrayal while you type the email. Conclusion of Chapter 9. The world is a chaotic, noisy, and emotional place. Most people are in the noise, drowning in it, being swept away by it. Your mental freedom depends on your ability to step out of the current, to stand on the bank of the river and watch the water flow by. You aren't being passive. You are being strategic. You are waiting for the right moment to step back in and cross. You are looking for the shallow spots that the people in the water can't see because they are too busy struggling to breathe. Emotion clouds judgment. Distance sharpens it. Learn to love the distance. Learn to value the cold eye. Because a mind that can see clearly is a mind that can never be defeated. Chapter 10. The detached mind is unshakable. We have traveled through the landscapes of your mind. We have dismantled the habit of reacting, we have loosened the grip of attachment, we have silenced the noise of public opinion, and we have learned to see the world with the cold eye of strategic clarity. Now, we arrive at the destination. But this destination is not a place you go. It is a person you become. There is a difference between a person who is trying to stay calm and a person who is fundamentally unshakable. The person who is trying is still in a state of friction. They are fighting their impulses, gritting their teeth, and using willpower to hold back the tide of their emotions. But willpower is a finite resource. Eventually, it runs out. The unshakable mind does not use willpower. It uses identity. The unshakable mind is the foundation of long-term mental freedom. It is the realization that while you cannot control the wind, you have become the mountain. The wind can howl, it can scream, and it can throw everything it has at the mountain. But the mountain does not try to stay still. It stays still because that is its nature. In this final chapter, we tie everything together. We define the identity of the detached mind, not as someone who doesn't feel, but as someone who has finally achieved the ultimate human power, the power to choose. The myth of the robot. Throughout this book, the most common fear you may have encountered is the fear that detachment will make you less human. You might worry that you will become a robot, a cold, unfeeling machine that doesn't love, doesn't laugh, and doesn't care. Let us put that fear to rest. Detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the absence of emotional slavery. A robot has no choice. A slave has no choice. A reactive person has no choice. When they are insulted, they must feel angry. When they lose, they must feel depressed. They are programmed by their environment. The detached mind, however, is the only one that is truly alive. Because you have created distance, you can now experience emotions without being consumed by them. You can feel the warmth of love without the suffocating fear of loss. You can feel the fire of ambition without the scorched earth of outcome addiction. You can feel the sting of grief and yet remain standing, knowing that the you that exists behind the grief is untouched. You are no longer the weather, you are the sky. The sky contains the storm, the sun, the clouds, and the stars. It is vast enough to hold everything, yet it is never changed by what it holds. This is what it means to be unshakable. You feel more deeply than ever before, but you are never again a victim of what you feel. Nothing outside controls the disciplined mind. The world will never stop trying to pull you out of your center. It is not the world's job to be peaceful so that you can feel at peace. The world's job is to be chaotic. The economy will shift. People will betray you. Your health will fluctuate. This is the static of existence. Most people spend their lives trying to fix the outside world so they can finally feel okay inside. They think, if I can just get enough money, if I can just find the perfect partner, if I can just get people to stop being mean, then I will be happy. This is a fool's errand. You are trying to straighten the waves of the ocean with a ruler. The unshakable mind flips the script. You realize that nothing outside controls the disciplined mind. You build an internal citadel, a fortress of values, principles, and self-observation that is independent of external reality. When the world is in a recession, the disciplined mind looks for opportunity. When the world is in an uproar, the disciplined mind looks for silence. When someone screams in your face, the disciplined mind looks for the lesson. You have reached the point where your internal state is self-sustaining. You don't need the sun to shine to feel bright. You don't need the world to be kind to feel peace. You are the source of your own frequency. Handling the three great forces: pressure, provocation, and uncertainty. To be unshakable, you must master your response to the three forces that break the average person. 1. Pressure. Pressure is the world demanding a result. It is the big game, the high-stakes meeting, the looming deadline. Under pressure, most people tighten. They become attached to the outcome, and as we learned in Chapter 8, that attachment creates anxiety, which creates mistakes. The unshakable mind handles pressure by leaning out. You realize that the pressure is an illusion. It is just a story you are telling yourself about the importance of a moment. By detaching from the weight of the event, you perform with the fluidity of a child at play. You are focused, but you are light. 2. Provocation. Provocation is the world demanding a reaction. It is the insult, the bait, the person trying to pull you into the mud. The unshakable mind sees provocation as a test of its own discipline. You look at the person trying to provoke you and you think, I see what you are doing. You are trying to steal my peace to fill your own void. I do not consent. By refusing to react, you maintain your high vibration. You remain the master of the interaction because you are the one who cannot be moved. 3. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is the world refusing to give you a map. It is the fear of the unknown. The unshakable mind loves uncertainty. Why? Because uncertainty is the space where all possibility lives. If the future were certain, you would be a prisoner of fate. Because the future is uncertain, you are a co-creator of it. You detach from the need for safety and find security in your own ability to adapt. The identity of the observer. The ultimate hack for mental freedom is the permanent shift into the observer identity. For most of your life, you have used the word I to describe your ego. I am angry. I am sad. I am a failure. From this day forward, you must use I to describe the observer. I am the one noticing the anger. I am the one watching the sadness pass through. I am the one observing the ego's fear of failure. When you live as the observer, you are unshakable because the observer cannot be hurt. The observer is the witness. You are like a person sitting in a theater watching a movie of your own life. When the character on the screen, the you with the name and the job, gets into trouble, you might feel the tension, but you aren't actually in danger. You are in the seat. You are safe. This distance is not checking out of life. It is checking in to a higher level of reality. It allows you to play the game of life with more daring, more courage, and more joy, because you know that the real you can never be lost. The final discipline: choosing when to feel. As you master emotional detachment, you will find that you gain a new, godlike ability: the ability to choose your emotions. In the past, emotions happened to you. In the future, you will invite emotions in as guests. I see a beautiful sunset. I choose to let the emotion of or fill me completely. I will sit in this or for 10 minutes, and then I will let it go. I see an injustice. I choose to use the energy of anger to fuel my action to fix it. I will not become the anger, but I will use it as a tool. I feel a loss. I choose to enter the room of grief and sit there for an hour to honor what was. Then, I will walk out of the room and close the door. This is the ultimate freedom. You are no longer a victim of the weather of your mind. You are the one who decides which windows to open and which to close. You are the director of the symphony, the legacy of the detached mind. Why does this matter? Is this just about being less stressed? No. Emotional detachment is about power. The world is currently in a crisis of reactivity. We are a species of triggered, addicted, and manipulated people. We are easily led, easily angered, and easily controlled. A person who is emotionally detached is the only person who can be truly ethical. Why? Because you cannot be bribed by praise, you cannot be intimidated by threats, and you cannot be distracted by petty dramas. You act from a place of clear-eyed principle. A person who is unshakable is a fixed point in a turning world. You become a source of strength for everyone around you. When everyone else is panicking, they will look to you. When the world is screaming, they will seek your silence. Your mental freedom is the greatest gift you can give to the world. Because a free mind is a mind that can think, a mind that can love, and a mind that can lead. The last practice, the internal citadel. For your final 15-minute practice, I want you to build your internal citadel. Define your pillars. Identify 3 principles that are more important to you than any external outcome, e.g., integrity, courage, calm. The external audit. Visualize the thing you are most afraid of losing: your reputation, your money, your partner. The declaration of independence. Look at those things and say, out loud, you are beautiful and I value you. But I do not need you to be whole. My peace is not your hostage. If you stay, I am grateful. If you go, I am still the mountain. The seal of silence. Feel the weight of your own presence. Feel the silence behind your thoughts. That silence is your home. It is always there. No one can enter it without your permission. Conclusion. You began this book as a reactor. You were a collection of habits, a victim of triggers, and a prisoner of expectations. You end this book as an observer. The world hasn't changed. The traffic is still there. The critics are still there. The uncertainty of the future is still there. But you have changed. You have broken the chains of reaction. You have opened the hand of attachment. You have silenced the jury of opinion. And you have found the sacred pause where your freedom lives. Go out into the world today. Let the wind blow. Let the tides rise. Let the people speak. Nothing outside controls the disciplined mind. You are unshakable. You are free. Now, go live.